Hi, let's read Macbeth, Act I. Grab your book, open it up, and let's turn to Act I. Shakespeare tells us that the scene is in a desert place. So we're in Act I, Scene 1, and we meet three witches. When shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won. That will be our set of sun. Where the place? Upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth. I come, Graymalkin. Paddock calls, anon. Fair is foul, and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. Right. So right at the very beginning, we just met three witches, and they sound like they're up to no good because they say fair is foul and foul is fair. Good is bad and bad is good. This is the world in which they live. And they also say they're going to meet again when the battle's lost and won. These characters mess with language. They don't say what they mean, do they? We're going to meet them again. Okay, scene 2. We're at a camp, a military camp, and there's been a battle going on. And we meet Duncan, who's the king, with some of his right-hand men. And Duncan, the king, sees a man, it says a bleeding sergeant coming. He says, "What bloody man is that? He can report, as seemeth by his plight, of the revolt, the new estate." So there's a revolt going on, there's a rebellion, and there's a man coming and he's going to bring them news. Malcolm says, "This is the sergeant who like a good and hardy soldier fought against my captivity. Hail, brave friend! Say to the king the knowledge of the broil, as thou didst leave it." What's going on back at the battle? He says, "Doubtful it stood, as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless Macdonald, worthy to be a rebel, for to that the multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him. From the western isles of kerns and gallow glasses is supplied." He's got, this rebel Macdonald, he's got reinforcements. "And fortune, on his damned quarrel smiling, showed like a rebel's whore. But all's too weak, for brave Macbeth, well he deserves that name, disdaining fortune, with his brandished steel, which smoked with bloody execution, like valor's minion, carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which ne'er shook hands nor bade farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the knave to the chaps. Macbeth came up and fought this Macdonald, and he just sliced him open from the belly up to the mouth, and fixed his head upon our battlements." Duncan says, "Oh, valiant cousin, worthy gentleman." The servant goes on, "As whence the sun gins his reflection, shipwrecking storms and direful thunders break, so from that spring whence come comfort, seem to come discomfort swells. Mark, King of Scotland, mark. No sooner justice had, with valor armed, compelled these skipping kerns to trust their heels, but the Norwegian lord, surveying vantage, with furbished arms and new supplies of men, began a fresh assault." They got Macdonald got rid of, but now there's a guy from Norway. "Dismayed not this our captains, Macbeth and Banquo? Were they not upset that they had now someone else to fight against?" "Yes, as sparrows eagles, or the hare the lion. If I say sooth, I must report they were as cannons, overcharged with double cracks. So they doubly redoubled strokes upon the foe. Except they meant to bathe in reeking wounds or memorize another Golgotha, I cannot tell. But I am faint, my gashes cry for help." The king says, "So well thy words become thee as thy wounds. They smack of honor both. Go, get him surgeons." Someone else comes in. "Who comes here?" Enter Ross. "The worthy Thane of Ross. What a haste looks through his eyes. So should he look that seems to speak things strange." Ross says, "God save the king." "Whence camest thou, worthy Thane?" "From Fife, great king, where the Norwegian banners flout the sky and fan our people cold. Norway himself, with terrible numbers, assisted by that most disloyal traitor, the Thane of Cawdor, began a dismal conflict, till that Bellona's bridegroom, lapped in proof, confronted him with self-comparisons. Point against point rebellious, arm against arm, curbing his lavish spirit, and to conclude, the victory fell on us. The Norwegian opponent has had help from a Scottish lord, the Thane of Cawdor. He was a rebel. He was a traitor. But the king's forces have beat him. Duncan says, great happiness. Ross says, that now Sweno, the Norway's king, craves composition, nor would we deign him burial of his men till he dispersed at St. Colm's Inch $10,000 to our general use. They've made peace terms. No more than that Thane of Cawdor shall deceive our bosom interest. Go pronounce his present death, and with his former title greet Macbeth. I'll see it done. What he hath lost, noble Macbeth hath won. So this Thane of Cawdor, he's a traitor, and he's been beaten, and so his title and his lands are going to be given to Macbeth, because Macbeth was so incredibly awesome in the fight earlier. Okay, scene 3. We're back on a heath. It is a deserted place, moors, a plain, empty. The 3 witches show up again. Where hast thou been, sister? Killing swine. Sister, where thou? A sailor's wife had chestnuts in her lap, and mouched and mouched and mouched. Give me, quoth I. Aroint thee, witch, the rump-fed Runyon cries. Her husband's to Aleppo gone, master of the Tiger, but in a sieve I'll thither sail, and like a rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll do, and I'll do. This first witch has been ticked off by some sailor's wife who wouldn't give her any chestnuts, and she's going to go, apparently, after the husband who's off sailing and magic him, presumably, to sink his ship and drown him. I'll give thee wind, thou'rt kind, and I another. I myself have all the other, and the very ports they blow, all the quarters that they know, in the shipman's card. I will drain him dry as hay. Sleep shall neither night nor day hang upon his penthouse lid. He shall live a man forbid. Weary 7 nights, 9 times 9, shall he dwindle, peak, and pine. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest-tossed. Look what I have. Show me, show me. Here I have a pilot's thumb, wrecked as homeward he did come. And they hear a drum. A drum, a drum, Macbeth doth come. The weird sisters, hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus do go about, thrice to 9, thrice to thine, and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9. Peace. The charm's wound up. So Macbeth and Banquo are coming home from this battle that was just described, and they meet these witches who have been up to no good. They're going to harass this ship captain, and they have horrid things they do it with, a severed pilot's thumb. But they've been waiting for Macbeth. Macbeth walks in and he says, so foul and fair a day I have not seen. Banquo, his friend, how far is it called to forests? What are these so withered and so wild in their attire that look not like the inhabitants of the earth and yet are on it? Live you, or are you aught that man may question? You seem to understand me by each at once her choppy finger laying upon her skinny lips. You should be women, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so. Banquo doesn't know who these creatures are. Apparently they've got beards. And it's just so unexpected to see people out in the middle of nowhere, women dressed the way they're dressed. Macbeth speaks to them. Speak if you can. What are you? All hail, Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. All hail, Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. All hail Macbeth that shall be king hereafter. Apparently Macbeth is startled by this. He's already Thane of Glamis, but they've just told him he's also going to eventually be Thane of Cawdor, and he's eventually going to be King of Scotland. Banquo says to him, "Good sir, why do you start, and seem to fear things that do sound so fair? In the name of truth, are ye fantastical, or that indeed which outwardly ye show? My noble partner you greet with present grace, and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope, that he seems rapt withal. To me you speak not. If you can look into the seeds of time, and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate." You know, they just gave all these prophecies to Macbeth, and Banquo says, you know, if you can see the future, you got anything for me? They say, "Hail, hail, hail, lesser than Macbeth, and greater. Not so happy, yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. You will give birth to kings in your family, but you will not be a king. So all hail Macbeth and Banquo. Banquo and Macbeth, all hail." They start to wander off. "Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more. By Sinel's death I know I am Thane of Glamis. But how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief, no more than to be Cawdor. Say from whence you owe this strange intelligence, or why upon this blasted heath you stop our way with such prophetic greeting. Speak, I charge you." They vanish. Banquo says, "The earth has bubbles as the water has, and these are of them. Whither are they vanished?" "Into the air, and what seemed corporal melted as the breath into the wind. Would they had stayed. Were such things here as we do speak about? Or have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner? Are we hallucinating, or did we just see that?" Macbeth says to him, "Your children shall be kings." He answers, "You shall be king. And Thane of Cawdor too, when it not so?" To the self-same tune and words. Who's here? Ross, the guy we just saw in a previous scene with King Duncan, who was told to go greet Macbeth with the traitorous Thane of Cawdor's title. Ross comes in, and he says to him, "The king hath happily received, Macbeth, the news of thy success, and when he reads thy personal venture in the rebels' fight, his wonders and his praises do contend which should be thine or his. Silenced with that, in viewing o'er the rest of the self-same day, he finds thee in the stout Norwegian ranks, nothing afeard of what thyself didst make, strange images of death. As thick as hail came post with post, and every one did bear thy praises in his kingdom's great defense, and poured them down before him." Angus says, "We are sent to give thee from our royal master thanks, only to herald thee into his sight, not pay thee." And Ross continues, "And for an earnest, a down payment, of greater honor, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which addition, hail, most worthy Thane, for it is thine." Banquo says, "What? Can the devil speak true? Did those witches actually tell the truth?" Macbeth says, "The Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" Angus says, "Who was the Thane, lives yet, but under heavy judgment bears that life which he deserves to lose. Whether he was combined with those of Norway, or did line the rebel with hidden help and vantage, or that with both he labored in his country's wreck, I know not, but treason's capital, confessed and proved, have overthrown him." Macbeth is now blown away. The witches actually foretold what happened immediately after. He has now got the title Thane of Cawdor. And aside to himself, just like he's thinking to himself, Macbeth says, "Glamis and Thane of Cawdor. The greatest is behind. Being king, the greatest. I wonder if that will come too. Thank you for your pains. Do you not hope your children shall be kings?" he says to Banquo, "when those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promised no less to them?" Banquo says, "That trusted home might yet enkindle you unto the crown, besides the Thane of Cawdor. But 'tis strange, and oftentimes to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles, to betray us in deepest consequence. Cousins, I pray you, a word. Cousins, a word, I pray you. And he goes off to talk to Ross and Angus, leaving Macbeth alone to think. And he talks while he thinks. So Banquo makes a good point here. You know, if we trust them, are they from God or are they from Satan? Are they evil or are they good? And sometimes evil tells you the truth to make you trust them, to trust it, and then betrays you in something bigger. Banquo is very wary of these witches. But let's hear what Macbeth says. So often in a Shakespeare play, characters will just step aside and they will talk to themselves. It's called a soliloquy, and it's the only way we have of knowing what's in their heads because we can't read their minds. So they say it out loud as if they're talking to themselves, so it lets us in on what they're thinking. This is what Macbeth says. Two truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. I'm Glamis, I'm Cawdor. There's a third one, King, the swelling act, the main event. I thank you, gentlemen. This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair and make me my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. All right, he says he's got a horrid image that makes his heart beat. What could this image be? Well, how could a person become king? Not while the king's alive, but you could kill the king, and then you could be king. And this is what's already entered into Macbeth's head. All right. Banquo sees him kind of in a daze and says, look how our partner's wrapped. And Macbeth says, if chance will have me king, why, chance may crown me without my stir. You know, if it's destined for me to be king, well, then I'll be king, and I don't have to do anything about it. It'll just happen. Banquo says, new honors come upon him, like our strange garments, cleave not to their mold, but with the aid of use. He's just kind of freaked out because he's just become Thane of Cawdor. Macbeth says, come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day. Banquo calls to him, worthy Macbeth, we stay upon your leisure. We're waiting for you. Macbeth says, give me your favor. I'm sorry. My dull brain was wrought with things forgotten. Kind gentlemen, your pains are registered where every day I turn the leaf to read them. Let us toward the king. Think upon, and then he turns to Banquo, think upon what hath chanced. And at more time, the interim having weighed it, let us speak our free hearts each to other. Think about this, Banquo, and let's talk about this further eventually. Banquo says, very gladly. Till then, enough. Come, friends. All right, so they march off, and the next scene takes place at the palace, where Duncan and his attendants and his lords, his thanes, are discussing the execution of the Thane of Cawdor. Duncan says, is execution done on Cawdor? Are not those in commission yet returned? Malcolm says, my liege, they are not yet come back, but I have spoke with one that saw him die, who did report that very frankly he confessed his treasons, implored your highness's pardon, and set forth a deep repentance. Nothing in his life became him like the leaving of it. He died as one that had been studied in his death, to throw away the dearest thing he owed, as 'twere a careless trifle. He died well. He said I was a traitor, and I'm sorry, and he was brave. Duncan says, there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. You know, you just can't judge people looking at him, because I really trusted him, and he turned out to be a traitor. And in walks Macbeth. Oh, worthiest cousin! The sin of my ingratitude even now was heavy on me. Thou art so far before that swiftest wing of recompense is slow to overtake thee. Would thou hadst less deserved, that the proportion both of thanks and payment might have been mine. Only I have left to say, more is thy due than more than all can pay. I wish I didn't owe you so much thanks and favor, because I fear I owe you so much I'm incapable of paying you back what I owe. Macbeth says, the service and the loyalty I owe in doing it pays itself. Your Highness's part is to receive our duties, and our duties are to your throne and state, children and servants, which do but what they should by doing everything safe toward your love and honor. I'm just doing the job of a good servant of my king. Duncan says, welcome hither. I have begun to plant thee, and will labor to make thee full of growing. I've just started rewarding you, Macbeth. There's more to come. Noble Banquo, thou hast no less deserved, nor must be known no less to have done so. Let me enfold thee and hold thee to my heart. Banquo says, there, if I grow, the harvest is your own. Duncan says, my plenteous joys, wanton in fullness, seek to hide themselves in drops of sorrow. Sons, kinsmen, thanes, and you whose places are the nearest, no, we will establish our estate upon our eldest, Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland, which honor must not unaccompanied invest him only, but signs of nobleness like stars shall shine on all deservers. From hence to Inverness, and bind us further to you. So Duncan has just announced that his oldest son Malcolm is the crown prince. He will be king after Duncan dies. Macbeth says, back to the king, the rest is labor which is not used for you. I'll be myself the harbinger, and make joyful the hearing of my wife with your approach. So humbly take my leave. I'm going to go ahead and tell my wife that you're on the way, because they're going to spend the night at Macbeth's castle. Duncan says, my worthy Cawdor. Now Macbeth, as he's walking away, he's going to talk to himself. The Prince of Cumberland. That is a step on which I must fall down or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies. If Duncan dies, Malcolm is king. If Malcolm is king, how can Macbeth be king? Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see. I want the heavenly beings, I want the stars not to look at what I think I might do, what I'm thinking about doing. I don't want anyone to know. Duncan says, true, worthy Banquo, he is full so valiant, and in his commendations I am fed. It is a banquet to me. Let's after him, whose care is gone before to bid us welcome. It is a peerless kinsman. And they leave. Now, the scene shifts to Macbeth's castle, Inverness, and we find his wife, Lady Macbeth, reading a letter from him. And she's reading, and it says, they met me in the day of success, and I have learned by the perfectest report they have more in them than mortal knowledge. When I burned in desire to question them further, they made themselves an air, into which they vanished. Whilst I stood wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor, by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail, King that shall be. This have I thought good to deliver thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightst not lose the dues of rejoicing, by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. Lay it to heart, and farewell. So, he has now informed his wife, hey, guess what? You're going to be queen someday. Macbeth is already all in, isn't he? He believes this is going to come true. Now, let's see what Lady Macbeth's reaction is. She says, she's done reading the letter, now she's talking. Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised. Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. What's the nearest way to being king? Bumping off the king. And she says, I fear your nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to do what you're going to have to do to be king. Okay, she goes on. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. And what thou wouldst highly, that wouldst thou holily. Wouldst not play false, and yet wouldst wrongly win. Thou'dst have, great Glamis, that which cries, thus thou must do if thou have it, and that which rather thou dost fear to do than wishes should be undone. All right. You want it. You want it as bad as I do. You're as ambitious as I am, but you still have this streak in you that wants to do it above board in the right way. She says, hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits into thine ear, and chastise with the valor of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round, the crown. You come here, she says. I'll give you a pep talk. I'll make you want to do something about it. Which fate and metaphysical aid doth seem to have thee crowned withal. A messenger comes in. She says, what is your tidings? The king comes here tonight. Thou art mad to say it. Is not thy master with him? Who, were it so, would have informed for preparation. If that were true, Macbeth would have sent me a message saying, the king is coming, get ready. He says, so please you, it is true. Our thane is coming. One of my fellows had the speed of him, who, almost dead for breath, had scarcely more than would make up his message. Give him tending. He brings great news. Messenger leaves. And she says, the raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. She says, make me, you spirits, make me a man. Take away my womanhood, anything that's weak or kind or soft. She says, fill me up with direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts, and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. She has already got it planned. We are killing him tonight, and I'm going to get my husband to go along with it. And I want to be full of cruelty. Instead of being motherly and nursing children, I want you to turn my milk to gall, and I want you to cover me in dark smoke so no one can see what I'm about to do. Right then Macbeth comes in. She says, great Glamis, worthy Cawdor, greater than both by the all hail hereafter. Thy letters have transported me beyond this ignorant present, and I feel now the future in the instant. He says, my dearest love, Duncan comes here tonight. She says, and when goes hence? He says, tomorrow, as he purposes. Oh, never shall sun that morrow see. Oh, he's never leaving. Your face, my thane, is as a book where men may read strange matters. To beguile the time, look like the time. Bear welcome in your eye, your hand, your tongue. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. He that's coming must be provided for, and you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch. which shall to all our nights and days to come give solely sovereign sway and masterdom. He says, we will speak further. She says, only look up clear. Look happy. Don't look nervous. You'll blow it if you look nervous. To alter favor, to change your countenance, is ever to fear. Leave all the rest to me. All right. Scene 6. Before Macbeth's castle, Duncan and his entourage have arrived. And Duncan says, this castle hath a pleasant seat. The air nimbly and sweetly recommends itself unto our gentle senses. Banquo says, this guest of summer, the temple-haunting martlet, does approve by his loved mansionry that the heaven's breath smells wooingly here. There's a bird, the house martin, has roosted in the eaves, and they only roost where the air is nice and it's a pleasant place. So it must be a pleasant place because they're roosting there. Banquo says, no juddy, frieze, buttress, nor coign of vantage, but this bird hath made his pendant bed and procreant cradle. Where they most breed and haunt, I have observed the air is delicate. Lady Macbeth comes out to greet him, and Duncan says, see our honored hostess. The love that follows us sometime is our trouble, which still we thank as love. He means, it's a lot of trouble to entertain the king and his entourage. I'm sorry you had to go to all that trouble. Herein I teach you how you shall bid God yield us for your pains and thank us for your trouble. She says, all our service in every point twice done, and then done double. We're poor in single business to contend against those honors deep and broad, wherewith your majesty loads our house. Hey, the best I could do for you, that doesn't even pay you back for how you're loading my husband with honors. For those of old, and the late dignities heaped up to them, we rest your hermits. He says, where's the Thane of Cawdor? We coursed him at the heels and had a purpose to be his purveyor. We thought we would beat him here, but he rides well, and his great love, sharp as his spur, hath holp him to his home before us. Fair and noble hostess, we are your guests tonight. She says, your servants ever have theirs themselves, and what is theirs in compt, to make their audit at your highness's pleasure, still to return your own. Everything we have is basically yours because you gave it to us, and so anything we do for you while you stay here, we're just giving you back what's yours. And he says, give me your hand, conduct me to mine host. We love him highly, and shall continue our graces toward him. By your leave, hostess. Okay, so it's later in the evening. Macbeth is walking alone. A servant passes by, and he's obviously serving a dinner. And Macbeth is talking to himself again. If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence, and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here, but here, upon this bank and shoal of time, will jump the life to come. All right. He says, if we could do this, if we could assassinate him, and then it's over. It's done. And there's no consequences, either in this life or in the next life. If we could trammel up the consequences, if we could catch the consequences in a net and keep them back, then we should go ahead and do it. But in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught, return to plague the inventor. All right. Often when people plan some violent course of action, it comes back to bite them. He says, being taught, return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then, as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek. All his kingly power, He doesn't exercise it harshly. He's a kind king. Hath been so clear in his great office that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. He's so nice. If he dies, everybody's just going to be so upset, and they're going to be incensed against whoever killed him. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. He's thinking maybe he shouldn't do it. You know, I'm his host. You don't kill your guests. It's just, you don't. And plus, he's a kinsman, distant, and he's my king. No. But here comes Lady Macbeth. He says, how now? What news? She says, he is almost supped. Why have you left the chamber? Hath he asked for me? Know you not he has? We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon. Look, we're not doing this, because he's already given me all sorts of rewards, and I am praised and honored by everyone. Why would I mess that up? She's not giving up so easy. She says, was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteemest the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage? Really? I don't even know how else to sum that up. Really? She says. Are you afraid to do it? I know how much you want it. He says, prithee, peace. I dare do all that becomes a man. Who dares do more is none. I'll do everything appropriate for a man to do. But when you overstep that boundary, you're no longer a man. She says, what beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more than man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. Everything is perfect. The circumstances are perfect. I can't believe you're backing out. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. I would beat the brains out of my own baby if I had promised you to do it. But you promised me, and you won't do this. He says, if we should fail? We fail, but screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail. When Duncan is asleep, whereto the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him. His two chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince, that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lie as in a death, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt of our great quell? I'm going to get his guards drunk. And then we can go in while they're passed out drunk, kill Duncan, and make it look like they did it, frame him. He admires her, sad to say. He says, bring forth men children only, for thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males. Will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his own chamber, and used their very daggers that they have done it? She says, who dares receive it other? And we shall make our griefs and clamor roar upon his death. yeah, if we use their daggers, it's going to look like they did it. We can smear them with Duncan's blood. And then when they find out he's dead, we're going to be the loudest mourners in the house. Who would suspect us? Macbeth says, I'm settled, and bind up each corporal agent to this terrible feat. Away, and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. All right, that's Act 1. Take a break, or if you want to, go on to the next video for Act 2.